Hi, this is Mary Beth with the Alamance County Public Library, and today we've got part 2 of our thrillers series of our new books. So let's get started. Our first choice is The Bitterroots by CJ Box. This story is part of the Cassie Duel series. Cassie is a former law enforcement agent who has now become a private investigator, and she is very happy about this, but a friend calls in a favor and asks if she will investigate and help defend a young man who has been accused of assaulting a young lady from a prominent family. And that family has deep roots in the area that they live, and it is definitely a challenge for Cassie to defend this guy and to find out what really happened, because the family kind of closes up and is not as open with information as we might have liked. Our next book is Blue Moon by Lee Child, and it is a Jack Reacher novel. Jack is on a bus and sees an older man in trouble. And so he hops off the bus, tries to help the man, finds out that he and his wife have made some bad decisions and are now being chased by some pretty unsavory characters. And so, of course, Jack wants to jump in, or feels that he has to jump in and help this couple, and gets involved in some pretty hairy situations. Our next book is Enemy Contact by Tom Clancy. It is a Jack Ryan Jr. novel, and Jack Ryan Jr. is asked to spread a friend's ashes over on a Chilean hillside. But before he even goes, he is warned off by one person. When he gets there, there are all kinds of weird things happening, and he really wants to know what is going on this hillside that makes everyone want to keep me away. Our next book is The Russian by Ben Coes. And in this story, the Russian mafia has taken over the world. They have their hands in businesses, governments, all kinds of things all over the world, and are creating havoc. So the U.S. government decides to create an assassination team headed up by two men, one of whom is immediately killed, and the other must find a way to combat the Russians and kill the mob boss. Our next book is Genesis by Robin Cook. And if you've read any of these novels, you know that they are great medical, twisty thrillers. And this one is no exception. We have a social worker who has died of an apparent overdose, but her family swears she's never touched drugs. And they find out that she is 10 weeks pregnant, but no one knows who the father could be. So a geneticist decides to use some cutting-edge technology and find out who the father is using DNA. And it leads to another death. And so if you want to find out what happens, pick up Genesis. Our next book is Quantum by Patricia Cornwell. This is obviously a new series or a new direction from her normal forensic anthropologist stories. Quantum begins with Callie, who is getting ready to go to space, finding out that her twin sister is behind some break-ins and some other things that might endanger the space program and her launch, as well as the world at large. Our next book is Labyrinth by Catherine Coulter. It is part of the FBI thriller series, and so there are a couple of intertwining stories. One agent gets in a car crash, a body bounces off of her car, but when she comes to, that person has disappeared, and they find out later that it is an FBI consultant agent, and that person is still missing. And meanwhile, another agent is investigating a kidnapping. The lady who was kidnapped accuses someone in that small town who is the sheriff's son, who's very well connected, and in the end, both the agent and the kidnappee are arrested. So if you would like to find out how these tie in together, pick up Labyrinth. The next book is Final Option by Clive Cussler. It is part of the Oregon Files. In this book, the main character, Juan, has his ship, the Oregon, which is state-of-the-art. He goes to rescue 3 trapped Brazilians and discovers that it's a trap. And now he is pitted against a ship that is just as well equipped as his, has some of the same gadgets and such, but they don't have his crew. So can he and his crew win out over this rival ship and defeat one of his nemesis? Next, we have The Journey of the Pharaohs by Clive Cussler, and this is part of the Numa Files. And it has 3 stories. We start off with artifacts being plundered in an Egyptian tomb in 1074 BC. In 1927, we have a daredevil American pilot who crashes and disappears. And then in present day, we have a fishing trawler which sinks off the coast of Scotland. And all of these things tie into one story and one treasure hunt. So pick up Journey of the Pharaohs. Next, we have 1 Minute Out by Mark Greaney. And this is part of the Gray Man series. In this book, our main character is busting up a human trafficking ring, but his CIA handlers want him to hold off because they have an informant who is still offering information, and they want to hold off until he's given all that he could give. But of course, that does not sit well. So if you want to find out what happens, pick up 1 Minute Out. The next book is Kerry Morra by Thomas Harris. Cari is the caretaker of a building where lots and lots of gold is buried underneath it. And the bad guys are coming. They want to get the gold, but they also want to get Cari, and she is not down with that at all. And so a battle ensues. The next is Game of Snipers by Stephen Hunter. This is also part of a series, the Bob Lee Swagger series. And so Swagger is hired to go after a sniper and finds out that he can help prevent some future crimes. But the sniper is as good as he is. So it is definitely a cat and mouse game where one is trying to outdo the other. Our next thriller is Into the Fire by Gregg Hurwitz. This is part of the Orphan X series. And in this edition, Evan has retired from his position as an assassin, but he is still helping those who are truly desperate. And his new client is definitely desperate. He has been left a key by a cousin, and people are killing anyone he knows who might have information about this key. And so if you want to find out whether Evan can help him and figure out the mystery of what's going on with this key, pick up Into the Fire. Next, we have The Museum of Desire by Jonathan Kellerman. and this is part of the Alex Delaware series. And this book, Delaware and his partner are called to a crime scene where 4 people have been killed in 4 different ways. And so they have to figure out why these people were killed, why they were killed the way they were killed. Are they chasing after a group of murderers? You'll just have to find out. Now we get to the James Patterson part of our thrillers, and our first one is The 19th Christmas, and it is part of the Women's Murder Club series. Christmas ought to be a time where you don't have any murder, but Loman, the criminal mastermind, has decided that he wants to commit a huge crime, and so he gets a lot of other criminals to also do something at the same time to cover what he is doing. So if you want to see if the Women's Murder Club are able to decipher and figure out what's going on, pick up this book. Our next James Patterson is Blindside. This is part of the Michael Bennett series. And in this series, the president has a child in trouble, and of course, Michael Bennett's child is in prison, so they strike up a deal to mutually help each other. So if you want to find out what happens, pick up Blindside. Next, we have The Inn by James Patterson. It is part of the Instinct series. And so the proprietor of The Inn is a retired police person and wants to kind of leave behind his days of dealing with criminals. But a criminal comes to his inn and he discovers that his skills as an investigator are still needed. So let's see if he can find out who done it and thwart this criminal. Next, we have Killer Instinct by James Patterson. We have 2 people who have worked together on crimes before, and they both get pulled in as there is a huge terrorist attack in New York. And so one foils the killer and gets on the killer's hit list, and the other discovers that something in his past is coming back and has meaning in these new crimes. Also by James Patterson, we have The Warning. In this book, we have 2 characters who come home after a power plant emergency and discover that their entire town has been infected, changed, something is not right. And so if you'd like to find out why and what happened, pick up The Warning. And our last James Patterson on this list is Lost, and it is part of a new series about Tom Moon, and it has Tom fighting an international crime syndicate in Miami. So if that sounds like something you would be really interested in, pick up Lost. Our next thriller is by Preston and Child. It is Old Bones, and it is the first of a series about Nora Kelly. And so in this book, Kelly is invited to join an expedition that is looking into the Donner Party and what happened, do some archaeological digs and some just investigation. And she and the other members of the team discover that this site that they found where the Donner Party had stayed was just the tip of the iceberg, and there are all kinds of interesting things that they get pulled into that may have repercussions in modern day times. So if that sounds interesting to you, pick up Old Bones. The next book is also by Preston and Child. It is called Crooked River, and this is part of the Pendergrast series. And in this book, Pendergrast is called out to a beach where lots and lots and lots of shoes with feet still in them are washing up on the beach. And so he is trying to figure out whether the people whose feet and shoes these are still alive, what happened, and where all of this is coming from. Where is it washing in from? So pick up Crooked River if you would like to find out more. The next thriller is The Last Odyssey by James Rollins. And in this book, we are following the ships that from Odysseus, from the Iliad and the Odyssey. So a medieval ship is found, and the Sigma Force are called in to investigate and figure out is this really proof that the Iliad and the Odyssey were from true life. Next, we have The New Girl by Daniel Silva. It is part of the Gabriel Allon series. And in this book, Gabriel is called to investigate the disappearance of a young lady who is in a Switzerland boarding school. Everyone thinks that she is the daughter of a diplomat, but she's not really. So we have to find out who she is and why her disappearance is so important and how it relates to some of Gabriel's old cases and old enemies. Our next thriller is Hunter Killer by Brad Taylor. And this is also part of a series, the Pike Logan series. And so Pike and his team are called to Brazil. And before they even get there, his team is attacked in Charleston, South Carolina. And he realizes that whoever is behind this is targeting his team. And so he does everything that he can, even going against his superiors' directives to save his team because they are like his family. Our next thriller is by Stuart Woods. It is Skin Game, and it is part of the Teddy Faye series. Teddy is called to Paris to try to find out some information, and realizes that things are much more complicated than he was told. He has to figure out how all of this ties in and what the global implications to some of the secrets that he finds. Next, we have another Stuart Woods book, Stealth, and this is part of the Teddy Barrington series. Teddy is called away from his English villa and sent to nab a villain that he has faced before. And of course, things go majorly awry. So if you'd like to find out what happens, pick up Stealth by Stuart Woods. And our final thriller is also by Stuart Woods. It is Hit List. Also a Stone Barrington novel. Stone finds himself on a hit list for an international assassin, decides he's going to lie low, but he is not allowed to do so. And so he gets pulled in and ends up trying to save other people as well as his own self. And those are all the thrillers on our new bookshelf. I hope that you enjoyed this video and tune in soon to see more books that we have available in different genres. Again, I'm Mary Beth, and thanks for watching.